All right, I'm currently on the phone with Bret. He's another musician that reached out about the current wave of interview sessions. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
Hey, everybody. My name is Bret Vaughn, and I am a guitarist, songwriter, um, sideman. I've been involved in all kinds of different projects, spanning many different styles of music. And then the other main thing that I do is I'm a guitar teacher, and I have a virtual online teaching business that I do.
Awesome. Very cool. We'll talk a bit about that. But before we get there, let's talk about when you kind of first encountered music. How old were you when you kind of first realized that, music was going to be kind of a big part of your life?
Well, it runs in the family. So, I mean, my first inspiration for that, and I guess exposure to music and guitar, was from my dad. And so, that was always something that like passing the time, kind of just laying on his bed while he's just sitting there practicing away for hours and just kind of listening to him and sort of just being in awe of all of his ability. He was a tremendous musician and also very varied in his taste in music and stuff too. So he exposed me and my sister to a lot of the classic sort of like shredder guitar players, anybody from Eddie Van Halen and Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, Eric Johnson, just like that classic kind of breed of like, high caliber guitar players, as well as, he was big on Zeppelin and some fusion stuff. He was a big Alan Holdsworth fan. So I was hearing all this stuff from a very young age, and it seeped in, and it was just kind of part of my life. So I didn't really start until I was 11, but I kind of knew all the time leading up to that at some point I was probably going to pick it up. I just kind of had that feeling that I was going to, one day I'll probably play and be like my dad. You know what I mean?
Okay, sure. So it sounds like, you kind of had it set into you at a young age that was eventually going to work into your life. Tell me about when you did make that step. You started learning the instrument and everything. What did you find surprisingly difficult between watching it and being a part of it, as a spectator versus now actually being the one playing?
Couple things come to mind here, actually, because he put the guitar in my hands, I think when I was like 7 or 8, and it didn't really click with me at the time. I think I was just, too young to have like kind of the patience for it. I was like really excited about guitar as like a super young kid. I used to carry around like a plastic guitar and watch, Eric Johnson concerts and pretend I was playing the guitar and all this goofy stuff. But then it kind of just vanished, and I don't know what I was into, drawing and video games or, cartoons and stuff. But anyways, what made me start was when I started kind of finding my own music that inspired me to pick it up, which was Black Sabbath. I can pinpoint the specific band being Black Sabbath. When I heard that, it was just, I'd never experienced anything like that before, or had that experience from music before. So that just brought me to it. And so I asked him to get me started, show me something to get going here. But what made it challenging was, just having zero dexterity. And like my first experience on the guitar was not on an electric, but on a nylon string acoustic, so the physical nature of that neck of a classical guitar, it's very flat, it's very wide. And for having a young adolescent's like hands, that was pretty challenging to get that down. And there was the fingertip pain and all that stuff, but I didn't care because any one little thing that I could do on the instrument was so like, thrilling that I became immediately addicted. So like the hindrances didn't even factor into my reality. I didn't care. I was just going to keep going, so I was just too excited to not keep going.
Okay, so let's follow the natural progression of that. After a few years of you learning the instrument, getting comfortable with it, what were the first steps you took to either start creating your own project or working with other musicians?
Sure. So, the up until I started playing with other people, I was just absorbing all of my heroes music. You know, it was started with Sabbath, and then I went to Randy Rhoads era Ozzy, and it kind of all splintered off from there, into like more rock and more metal stuff that I was into at that time. I started jamming with my best buddy, still my best friend, by the name of Brian. And he started playing the drums about a year after me. So it was kind of like a natural built-in kind of jam situation. And he lived right down the street. So I just go over there and we would just, you know, try to play like some Metallica, some Ozzy stuff. And then we decided to enter or perform as part of the talent show in 8th grade at our junior high. And which we did play, part of Blackened by Metallica and Believer by Ozzy. So that was my first kind of like, you know, ensemble type experience. And then following from that in high school, freshman year, and then sophomore year, we both together, or not the first time, he joined the second time, but I did a program twice at Skips Music in Sacramento. And it's like a youth-based, you know, put a bunch of kids in bands, and they got to write 3 songs, and then there's a big concert at the end, and there's a winner, and the winner gets to like go and record, you know, a 3-song little EP and stuff. And we ended up, the second time I was in it, which was with my buddy Brian, we ended up winning that. And so that was super exciting and of course, very encouraging to continue down the path of music. And that band stuck around for a while. We did some pretty cool things. We opened up for a lot of our favorite bands, metal bands like Testament and Overkill and Vital Remains and Amon Amarth. And so we had some really great experiences from that. So that was pretty much through high school. That was pretty much what my ensemble experience was just pretty much that band.
That's cool. So how did that continue after high school? Did you pursue it through college, or alternatively, did you not go to college and just did music?
No, I did go to college. So that was that band ending was like the direct funnel into my next phase, which was, you know, the band. I don't know exactly how or why the band ended. It was just kind of like it felt kind of like a mutual stifling. I think creatively I was getting more into less like direct, like traditional metal type music. It started with like kind of the proggier bands in the metal scene, like Tool and Mastodon and Meshuggah and stuff. And they were just pulling all these different sounds and aesthetics that didn't really seem like conventional metal. And so that kind of opened up my mind a little bit. And before I knew it, I was more interested in non-metal genres like blues, and jazz was the main thing that really blew my mind wide open when I started listening to jazz. Cause I was hearing things that, you know, that basically no metal or rock musician was, presenting musically. And I was so baffled as far as how they were doing it. Where is this coming from? Can I do this? You know, so I was just so intrigued and curious about the possibilities of that type of music. And so I was like, okay, well, if I'm just going to stick around here, you know, in my hometown, like, I don't know how I'm going to kind of get into the next level of, musical awareness. So, and it was time to go to college. Right. So I was like, you know what? A real dream would be to go to a school like Berklee College of Music. It's all the way on the East Coast in Boston. This would be like a completely transformative experience. And then of course the faculty there are all, you know, unbelievable musicians with like the most prestigious sort of backgrounds and experience and all that. And so after sort of suffering through some community college in the Sacramento area for a while until all the stars aligned, then I was able to go to Berklee College of Music in Boston. And that was when I really dove deep into jazz, but also like classical music. And their program's really broad, so you can study a lot of different styles of music. And that's pretty much what I did, was just try to reap as much benefit out of that school and what it had to offer as I possibly could in the short span, you know, of getting a degree there. And so I can pinpoint that experience as being the most pivotal musical development experience of my life so far. And everything since then has just kind of been a unfolding of that learning. And I mean, I'm still processing, I think, a lot of things that I studied and learned, and see them kind of come out, or they make more sense now than they did at the time when I was studying them, of course, which is the nature of learning musical concepts. When you first learn them, a lot of times you don't really wrap your head around it, but you kind of keep coming back to it. And then at some point there are like light bulb moments can happen. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's what that teacher was talking about, or that's what he was showing me, or whatever. So I'm very lucky that I got to have that experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me about where you are now. What projects are you involved in? What are you kind of looking to get into?
Sure. Well, ironically, by the time I got to Berkeley, I felt like I was completely done with anything, not just metal, but just rock. Like it just, that style, anything. I almost wanted to stop playing guitar because I was so interested in non-guitar music. But obviously I kind of found my way back into the instrument and it became relevant. But to make a long story short, post Berkeley, I mean, I was playing lots of different styles of music. And then at a certain point, which was really only a handful of years ago, something reignited in my DNA, and I like craved kind of that high intensity kind of music, which, you can get a lot of that intense emotion and stuff, or intense, energy and stuff from a lot of different styles of music, including like jazz and fusion and stuff. So that kind of metal grit is around. So anyways, I started getting back into heavy stuff, and then one of the bands that I used to, that my high school band used to split the bill with all the time, they're a thrash metal band called Psychosomatic, originally from the Bay Area, and they've been around since the late 80s. And we were buddies with those guys. We played shows with them all the time. And then I think Jeff, who's the main sort of driving creative person behind that band, he saw, I think, some of the stuff I was posting, which was like kind of getting more into the metal, kind of like metal guitar type things that I was posting. And I think he saw that as an opportunity to reach out and see if I was interested in joining up with him, with Psychosomatic. And I didn't have any projects going on at that time. I had kind of stopped my previous project, which I can say was like a progressive kind of fusiony experimental rock band, I guess, for lack of a better descriptor. I was kind of done trying to figure out what my next step was. And so this was around the pandemic, a few years ago, 4 years ago. And he reached out and it just sounded fun. I was like, okay, well, I haven't gotten on stage and like headbanged and played like heavy metal or to a bunch of screaming crazy people in like at that point, 15 years or 12, I don't know how long, definitely over a decade. And so it sounded great. So I'm with them, and I also have my own project, which has been kind of only existing behind the scenes as all the obstacles of life have kind of made it a challenge to finalize the project. But it is getting near the end of its creative part here. A band called Portend, which is my own personal expression. I've written pretty much all the music and most, like maybe 80-90% of the lyrics. So that one's a very near and dear type of project for me, since it's, kind of all my own. It's my child, and then besides those two projects, I'm kind of like a freelance, like session musician, so I'm just I like to be involved in all kinds of different, it's just work, like going into the studio to record guitar for a blues album, or playing a show of somebody else's music, or whatever the thing is, if it seems interesting enough to do, or something I can learn from, it's got good players, things like that. It seems worth doing, then I'll do it.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds like you kind of have a good set of projects that you're involved in that kind of tap into, various needs of being a musician.
It's tough. It's a tough life, man. So I think one of the if I were a musician who was sort of in a stylistic box, like, oh, I only play blues, then then there would be so many work opportunities that would never come your way, or that you couldn't utilize that to help pay the bills. You know what I mean? So I've also done lots of like solo jazz guitar gigs at like wineries and restaurants and like different types of events and stuff. And so, you know, I don't really think of myself in a particular genre. I just think of myself as a musician, just, full stop.
Yeah, that's great. That's exactly the way you should think about it, and think about it more creatively than like technically. That's kind of my position on it anyway. All right. So what are some of your favorite memories that have kind of stuck with you throughout the entire time that you've worked on music and the various genres that you've been a part of and been interested in? What keeps you motivated?
Some of my favorite memories, they would probably all be just live concerts, live performances, and especially the band that was the one I was referring to pre-Psychosomatic, which was my project called The Mindful. It was like a trio. I don't know, I guess you could kind of think of it as like a modern sort of Jimi Hendrix experience, whereas like the Hendrix experience was very 60s kind of groovy sort of stuff with some funk. We were kind of like, like a Radiohead infused Hendrix, trio. So there's like really spacey sort of scapes going on, but there's also like jamming going on, improvising and stuff. And so some of those concerts that we played for people who were they're just totally in that moment with us when we were just going out on a limb, just trying things that we didn't know if they were going to work. And sometimes they didn't work. But a lot of times they did work, and they could never be repeated. And that's the beauty of jazz or any type of improvised music, is like not knowing what's going to happen and then being completely surprised, both audience and band, in a beautiful way with these, when things kind of connect and the energy just sort of keeps escalating, and the crowd's getting more excited and they're feeding that energy back to you. And it's a cycle. So I would say that those would be some of the most, I guess, precious music experiences that I've had. Otherwise, where I'm at now, though, the thing that keeps me motivated now, I'm not quite as concerned with improvising, although I still, obviously it's important to me, but I kind of found myself flipping back to the other side of that coin, which is composing. So, where you get to kind of take your time, you get to really go through everything with a fine-tooth comb and make your statement exactly how you want it to be made. That perfectionism kind of nature within a musician. So for me right now, that's kind of the motivating thing, is to just create beautiful pieces of art, and so that's what I'm trying to do with Portend, is just really just make a beautiful, concise statement. I mean, it's extreme music, but there's still a lot of melody in it. And I think about it very much like classically speaking, so I'm motivated with composition, primarily now, as opposed to improv. But I do think that at a certain point, the coin's going to flip again, because that's been the nature of my experience as a musician, is that, you swing one side of the pendulum for a while, and then you get that craving to kind of go back to the other side of the pendulum, and it just kind of goes back and forth over time, over the years. So right now it's composing.
Awesome. On that note, once you do get the material to release for that, where can people find that, and then also follow you on your social medias?
Let's see. I mean, we're gonna have a band camp. I'm not sure exactly how it's all gonna be released. I don't know if we're gonna do Spotify and stuff. We'll probably, but the band camp will be for sure. So I mean, you just kind of have to, I guess, follow me and see what the announcements are when we come to that decision. As far as social media goes, my Instagram is at In My Book of Spells. I also have a TikTok that's that same username, In My Book of Spells. I'm on YouTube. I have a channel on YouTube, and my handle is just my name, which is Bret Vaughn, Vaughn. Um, I think I covered them all there. Yeah. So I'll of course be announcing anything that I release of my own music through those things. There's a Portend Instagram just as a placeholder, but since there's been like no activity on it, it's just kind of barren at the moment. But we've been recording different rehearsals and writing sessions and stuff. So I'm hoping that we'll have a lot of really cool type of content for people to check out if they're interested, like the behind the scenes of like the making of the album and stuff like that. And I plan on doing guitar playthroughs of all the songs because obviously I put insane hours into the arrangements and would love to showcase all that hard work and everything in some cool videos, and probably do the same for the drums and maybe the bass as well.
Awesome. So definitely a lot of places to catch it and, check out what you're doing.
Yeah, the Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok are the main places to see the things that I put out.
So I always like to give the person I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last words. So what's a message that you think people should hear?
Sure. This has come up a few times. I mean, I'm a guitar teacher, so I talk to people about, people come to me they want help developing skills, developing abilities, developing knowledge. I think the most important thing that goes beyond all of that is to have a reason for why you create. I think it's important to be reflective and to dwell on why are you making music? Is it to, uplift people? Is it just therapy? I think if you're aware of your agenda and you're aware of your intentions, I think it'll make it a lot more effective for you to go in there and do the work and come up with something that's going to connect with people. So, get past the kind of superficial stuff of like just wanting to be like seen as a musician or to be seen as an exceptional musician. I mean, that's a great thing, but the important thing or what makes a musician exceptional is how they move people or what message they impart upon their listeners, So I think the why is by far the most important thing to dwell on. And then all the work that you put into practicing, writing and editing, all your stuff will just be in service of your main agenda as an artist,